My name is Jessica Ratcliff and I'm part of the Irish Seaweed Research Group at the University of Galway in Ireland. As part of this project we've been running a recirculating aquaculture system involving two species, so different morphologies of ulva, the tubular and the lamina, and integrated with the lump sucker. So I first got involved with IMTA in 2010 and we were undertaking a review of what existed in Ireland, and at that time really all that existed were different projects, so quite small scale integration of trout with different seaweeds, or mainly lab-based projects looking at sort of nutrient uptake rates. Since then, now in Ireland we have one commercial operation, but still at a very trial stage, and that's a land-based IMTA system with perch and duckweed. And we have one sea-based incidental IMTA operation, so there's salmon next to Alaria. There are a number of projects still ongoing, so the iDream and the Integrate project being the latest ones, and the Marine Institute in Ireland also now has a licensed IMTA sea site, which is to facilitate greater experimentation and trials of sea-based IMTA. I think it's largely academic, but there is commercial interest, mainly from shellfish or seaweed producers. And the freshwater project with the perch and the duckweed, that's being run on a commercial basis. So there's a lot of interest about how that will go. It's obviously at very early stages at the moment, and it's started commercial production earlier this year. And obviously there's interest about how that's going to work out over the next months and years. I think within the aquaculture community, many more people are aware of it now. It's a familiar concept. Within the regulatory community, maybe it's so-so. This project and the last project, iDream, have made quite a big difference, I think, in making it more familiar to more people. Regulatory-wise, there's no specific IMTA legislation, but we now have a multi-species license, so people are able to apply for multiple species at the same site on a specific license. And I think that has been regarded as a sort of segue into more IMTA-orientated legislation. Amongst the public, no, I don't think it's a common concept at all. But I think once it's explained, it's usually much more well accepted than, or it's very well understood as being a sort of positive development of aquaculture. And we still have quite a strong anti-fish farming group in Ireland, and I think that, I don't actually know how IMTA is received within this group, but it's quite a vocal opposition to fish farming in particular, but to aquaculture in general, that exists. I think that's really hard to say because the licensing process is complicated and lengthy in Ireland anyway. I think anything particularly involving a finfish license is a long procedure. And I think one of the anxieties of producers is that anything that complicates the license process further is off-putting to them. Within Ireland there's a number of bodies that are required to be consulted during an aquaculture license process, and this depends on the specific license and where it's located as to whom is actually consulted, but some of those regulatory bodies have indicated that IMTA is looked on favourably by themselves and that it would facilitate their approval of a licence. If it provided extra employment, yes, I definitely think it would. It's the same in Ireland, that the rural economy is quite dependent in certain places on the aquaculture industry. So it's very important, and it's a strong motivator. But I think people aren't certain yet that IMTA will facilitate that creation of extra jobs, and that's probably the problem. But when we first started the project, it was harder to get interest from the fish farmers and fish producers, and towards the end I think they showed quite a lot more interest, particularly in the social, the way IMTA was received socially. So I felt that there was a shift during the project, that it became sort of more importance. It was on their radar as we went on. So that's perhaps a positive sign. It's something that was raised repeatedly in the thematic roundtables, was that there needs to be a way found to facilitate that kind of cooperation and cross-training between the different aquaculture sectors themselves. Obviously the expertise at the moment is sort of contained within each little sector. People need to talk to each other. And it seems to me that there's a lot of industry development statements that support very much the idea of IMTA, but I don't know how this translates into actual practice. So I don't think it's necessarily that easy. I don't see any specific support for IMTA, but I may be wrong there. I'm not very familiar.